In class today, we did lesson 4. We're gonna go over the lesson 3 practice, the key I'm gonna put up here in a second. But lesson 4's goals were to be able to use the terms symmetric, skewed, uniform, bimodal, and bell-shaped to describe data. All right, if you can't, then, right now is the time to address that deficiency. So how do we know when something is symmetric? Table 2. What does it mean for data to be symmetric? Okay, can you tell me, like, is the data for number 3 symmetric? Yeah. And how do you know? Okay, so if I were to draw a line somewhere, and really, like, symmetry, it could be drawn vertically, horizontally, diagonally. Like, say I have a square, for example, right? I could choose to draw a line of symmetry any sort of way. If it'll look like a mirror image on both sides, then it's symmetrical. So if I draw a line and it looks like a mirror image on both sides, then it is symmetrical. This one happens to be perfectly symmetrical, but if for the most part it is anyway, then you also can tell from that and say it's symmetrical. So both the dot plot, would you say the histogram is also symmetrical? Okay, good. So like mirror images. Doesn't necessarily have to always be the bimodals that are symmetrical. Sometimes the bimodals aren't symmetrical. Usually they are. Like, I would say this one, does this one look symmetrical? Not as much. Definitely not as much as the other one. Definitely still bimodal though. Okay, so bimodal is the one where it has like a decrease in the middle and like 2 high points. So sometimes you can use more than one word to describe something. Sometimes it's just the one word. Like this one is probably just bimodal. Roughly symmetric. The difference is these. But I would agree, like, it doesn't seem to be enough for it to be perfectly symmetric. Okay, so that's one of the words, symmetric. Now, what about skewed? Stop me when I get to one that is skewed on the screen. Okay, stop. I heard someone say stop. This one, I guess you could say, is skewed a little bit in what direction? What type of skewed, left or right? Right skewed, so there's like a void here. Normally when we see the skewed, we see maybe like a little bit more data over here. This one could just be an outlier, but usually on the test, they put ones that are more straightforward. How would you describe this part of the data using some of the words we talked about today? Bell shape. That part is symmetric. So if we're talking about the left side of the graph, it's symmetric. If we're talking about the whole thing, probably not. But this part is symmetric. Again, on the test, it'll be more straightforward. And if you can make a good argument and you get it wrong, then just tell me and I'll give you a feedback. All right, but yeah. What direction would this one be skewed? Left skewed, because that's where the void would be. Right, void on the left. That's what I usually look for. And then what word haven't we used? All right, uniform. Is 10 uniform? Is it symmetric? Yes, it is symmetric. It's not uniform. I don't know if this qualifies as bimodal because, it has a peak in the middle too. But like if we were just looking at this side, that side's bimodal. Looking at this other side, that side is one more. Let me scroll up to see if we can find a uniform distribution. Stop me when I get to it. Okay. So yeah, the dot plot for sure is uniform. Histogram doesn't look as much, but it's just because of how they did the intervals. They could also change the intervals and make it to where it will look more uniform. For the most part, it is uniform. Is it also symmetric? Yes. I don't know where the middle is, maybe about here. But yeah, it does look like a mirror image on the side. All right, so that's practicing all the words. So if that's easy for you, great. You should get at least a few of those questions right on Monday on your quiz. And then the second part was using a graphical representation of data to suggest a situation that produced the data picture. So I say I have one of these data distributions on the test. And I said, what could this data represent? I could have A, B. What did I have? It could be the age of people in a nursing home. We could have B, beats per minute, as in like heartbeat. C could be temperature in May. And one more. We could have. I'm trying to think of a wrong answer, something we can't do. What's something that just could not be? That's really good. Okay, so money owed. I mean, I guess that can still work. Like you could think of like I owe someone $57. Score of a hockey game. How do they score a hockey game? Oh, okay, so that's all right. So a good test question for this would be like select all that the data could represent. Select all that can be represented by this data. Or by the graph, okay. So that means you need to check every single option and see which one is reasonable. So could this be the age of people in a nursing home? Some are saying yes, some are saying no. I think it would be like the most well-ran nursing home ever if they have people well over 100, several people well over 100. So I would say less likely. So I would probably not take that one. Beats per minute. Can your heartbeat be 100 beats per minute, for example? Yeah, maybe when you're like exercising or walking even. I know when you walk, it's about 100 beats per minute. So I would pick B. Could it be the temperature in May? Yeah, it didn't specify like where in the world. Not sure if it reaches, I don't think it reaches that high in Arizona May, but maybe like somewhere else that it's really hot. It doesn't specify. Money owed. Could I owe someone $100, $101? So I think that you could pick two. And then the score of a hockey game. All right, probably not. Maybe score of a basketball game, but not a hockey game, because those would just be per goal, right? So that's like where I think that question might come up, is which ones make sense for this data? What could this data represent? All right, questions on the goals for today? Anything from today's lesson that was confusing? All right, so then first I'll show you the key for that practice I checked in class, just because even though I know I put it on the wall back here, not everyone goes up and checks and they think that they could be doing it right, that it's easy, but then like not. So here's what I want you to do. Take out the practice from earlier. If you didn't get that answer, or maybe you didn't get it fully, Because for these, you were also supposed to interpret the value in the situation, so you shouldn't just have a number. It should be what that number represents and stuff. So if it's wrong, mark it wrong, fix it. If it was missing some information, add in that information. I would recommend with a different color, more so for you. Like, I don't care, like you can resubmit your homework with the different colors that you filled in. This is for you, like, to understand where you might need to focus more in your notes and in your study and all that. So correct it if it's wrong, fill it in if it's incomplete. Ideally, with a different color to be complete. But here's the first part, 1A through C. So A was for, the answer should have been 8 for the minimum. That was the slowest that the cars were going. B should be 44 miles per hour for the maximum. That was the fastest that the cars were going. C should be 20 miles per hour for the median. Yep.
You just put a number wrong.
Yeah, like you need to have, right here it says interpret the value. So you just have to say what that number means. Does it need to be that super long sentence that I have? No, you could say, for the median, for part C, you could say half of the people went slower than 20 miles per hour, half of the people went faster. Questions on that? Any that are confusing, we can go over after we just fill it in. All right, let's scrolling down. So D was 12 for Q1. That means that a fourth of the people went less than 12 miles per hour, slower than that. E, the answer was 24 for Q3. That means that a fourth of people were going faster than 24 miles per hour. Or you could say 3/4 of the people were going slower than that. Because the quartiles split it into quarters. All right, then number 2, I think number 2 is the hardest. We can go over it later, why that's the answer. You guys might have gotten it because we reviewed mean in here. But 2 should have had 2 answers. You should have picked A and B. Going down. 3 answer was 6 inches. 4, your answer should have been C only. Unless it says select all, it's usually just one answer. And then the back side. So 5, you should have made a dot plot that looks something like this. You should have had an axis with like consistent intervals. So, for example, they marked every 5th tick mark, but they still have individual tick marks. That's fine. So something to that effect. If my data starts at 92 and ends at 119, I probably want my number line to be a little before and a little after that. And then the histogram, so a little bit more so you see it, could look something like that. If you decided to do intervals of 10, so like they did intervals of 5, as you can see, it goes from 90 to 95, 95 to 100. You could have also done intervals of 10 and still gotten it right. So if you did intervals of 10, how different would this histogram look? Would I have more bars or less bars if I make the intervals bigger? I would have less bars. Because then like if I did make the intervals bigger, then like these first two bars would merge together, the second two would merge together, and the third two would merge together. So like you could have done it differently and still be right. If you did intervals of 5 and it doesn't look like this, then we got something wrong. As soon as it hits that 95 exactly, it should go in the bar to the right of it. So this one's like 90 through 94.9. Once it hits 95, it goes in this one. All the way up to like 99.9 and so forth. Right? Then C, we have, is that the one? Oh, no. So this is just a sample response. It asks you which display gives you a better overall understanding of the data. As long as you picked either graph and justified it, I don't think you could get that one wrong. Like they said histogram. My opinion is I think that the dot plot is a better representation. You can see all the data points in the dot plot. Whereas the histogram is just input. But as long as you say one of them and justify it, then you're good. All right. So sorry, last one. So this last one was just asking you if this question is statistical or not. So you did not have to find the area of the floor in this classroom. You just had to tell me if it was statistical or not. Which it is not. So there's only one right answer for the area of the floor in this classroom. So that isn't statistical. If there's only one possible answer. Questions on that? Is there, well, we'll definitely go over number 2, because that one, I think everyone needs clarification on. But were there any others on this one that you want to see worked out? Okay, so then let's definitely look at number 2. Because I know that that one, I feel like we didn't necessarily cover it in the algebra lesson, we covered it in math lab. But whoever made this lesson assumes that students remember like their median mode, all that stuff. So the data set represents the number of eggs produced by a small group of chickens each day for 10 days. Select all the values that could represent a typical number of eggs produced in a day. So when we talk about typical, what type of measurements, statistics are we finding? Average, good. Average / mean, they mean the same thing. What else did you learn is for typical values? So think of those definitions that we filled out the other day. Range is how spread out your data is. So that's a measure of spread. That's not a measure of center. Okay, typical would be our measures of center. So try again. Would it be the median? Is that a measure of center? Or a typical value? So then we'd also want to find the median. And then there's one more for typical values. One, do we have it? One more for typical value. Good guess. That is from our list, but the quartiles will help you with like how spread out the data is rather. The last one, any last guesses before I just tell you? The mode. These are all measures of typical values. Okay, now notice there's only 2 answers, so maybe one of these wasn't done. But these would be a good place to start. So like first calculate your average. We need a calculator for that. So for the average, you do the sum of the values. So like I have 5 7s, that's 35. Not gonna use a calculator. Plus 4 8s, that's 32. Plus 9 is 76. And then what would I divide by? Good, and how many are there in this one? There's 10, it tells us right here, or you could count them. And then when I divide them out, I get 7.6 for my average. So that's why you should have picked B, because average does tell you like a typical value in your data. And then also find the median, see if that's one of our answer options, because it's supposed to select all. So go left, right, left, right. I should expect 2 in the middle since there's 10 data points. And I have to add those together, divide by 2. That's how I get A as an answer, because that's my median, which also represents typical value. What would be my mode in this one? My most common value? 7. Notice they don't have 7 on this list, but if it was, then I would pick it. They just give me the median and average, those are my typical values, so just those. Okay, question on. All right, if you haven't gotten the lesson 4 at 80% or higher, I think I'll give you like an extra 5 or 10 minutes on that. Things you can do if you're already done with everything. We do have a quiz on Monday. Make sure your notes are helpful to you. Fill them out if you need more stuff. All the notes are in school with you. Ask questions if you're still confused about something. But yeah, we can go over the most missed ones on lesson 4 in about 10 minutes.
So like completed daily task, because obviously like we're doing assignments from algebra, those get scored in algebra for accuracy, completion, and things like that. But like for math lab, today's task is to do this practice, which you all did. So you're all going to get at least 10 points out of the 20 for this. And then the other goal is scoring 80% or higher on this practice. Now, if you still don't know how to figure out if you got 80% or higher, at the end, it'll usually tell you either out of 10 or either out of like whatever points there were. And I think like my screen is lagging. It's like a little bit behind. But say like it was 7.5 out of 11. All right, when you hit equals, it gives me a decimal. If you times by 100%, that'll give you the percentage. So then you would have to use your other attempts to now try to meet that goal. If you don't, I'll just give you the points for whatever you got. So like if you got this score, I would give you 16.8 out of 20, which isn't bad. But I've told you before, like math lab should be an easy A, right? So use that second attempt. Those of you that already did, but still didn't meet the 80% or higher, I deleted one of your submissions, so you have another try. But now let's look at like the most missed questions from that. I have those statistics right here. So you guys are period 3 for algebra. It looks like so far everyone got it right about which one shows a symmetric distribution. No one has any confusion about that. It's the one that is this one, the one about the box plot, that is most missed. So let's see that. And then if you have other questions, let me know. I could always take like other examples on the board. All right, but this one, the box plot represents the distribution of the number of points scored by a cross-country team at 12 meets. And you have to fill out some drop downs. So it says, is it possible to find the mean? Mean is your average. To find your average, how do you do that? Not to stop.
Oh,
For median, maybe you add what? Yes. Add all the numbers, so the sum of values, and then you do what with that? By the number of values. So am I able to find the sum of the values in a box plot? No, because box plots really only show us that 5-number summary. They show us things like the minimum here, or my maximum. What else do box plots show me? The median, which would be the line that's in the middle of the box, and then good, so the edges of your box make up your Q1 and Q3. All right, so no, you can't find the mean from a box plot. So that answers this part. It is not possible to calculate the mean because the box plot does not provide the 12 scores. All right. Hold on, let's see what the next says. It blank provides a summary of the scores. So it only provides a summary of the scores. It tells me how spread out the scores were. That's what box plots are useful for. But it doesn't tell me enough to find the mean. Does that make sense? Okay. So then, is it possible to find the median? Yes. And we know it's 34 because it lines up here. So that makes sense. Because it's a yes for that one. And is it possible to determine if the cross-country team ever scored 30 points at a meet? Can we tell? Okay, some are saying yes, some are saying no. Those of you saying no, why do you think we can't see if someone's ever scored 30 points? All right. If it asks me, did anyone ever score 22 points? I could say yes, because I know that's my minimum. If someone ever asked me if they ever scored 42 points, I could say yes, because that's my maximum. But remember, does your median have to be like a number in your data set? Couldn't it be just like between the two middle numbers? So median doesn't really help with that. And then so the quartiles don't really have to be a data point, if that makes sense. It's just where like the first quarter is, the middle is, and the last quarter. So it's not possible. Unless it's a minimum or a maximum, you can't say that it's scored 30. Because that is not a minimum or a maximum. That makes sense? Better? Any other requests from this one? From this practice? We might have time for like one more. Okay, let me check. Hold on, let me pause this so we don't see so. So, and I'm sorry that it looks so small on the screen. Maybe it looks better on your screen, but the data represents the number of ounces of water that 25 students drink before donating blood, and it's all listed there. Does it accurately represent the data? So for box plots, or not box plots, dot plots, if I have 3 8s in my data set, then I should have 3 dots on the 8. 3 dots on the 16, or 3 16s, I should have 3 dots. For the sake of time, can someone tell me if the dot plot is good? It looks good to me, at least so far. Now for the box plot, we have to do the 5-number summary. So Does it have the same minimum and maximum? Yeah, we have to find the median. First, make sure that your values are in order. What is it called? They are in order, so that saves you a step. And also for the sake of time, since there's 25 data points, I should only expect there to be one in the middle. And that would be my 13th, right? We only have a Saturday, but because 25 is close to 24, 24 divided by 2 is like 12. So I know it'll be my 13th data point. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Does it have my median at 64? No, it has it as 48. So we would say the box plot does not correctly represent it. I don't even need to check the quartiles because the median's wrong for sure. And then what information about the data is provided by the box plot that is not provided by the dot plot? Let's see what those options are. Most frequent value or values or the median in quartiles? Okay, good, because remember we said box plots don't even show us how frequent something is. It just shows us like a summary. And then what information about the data is provided by the dot plot, but not the box plot? Good, things like the mode, you could better see on a dot plot that shows you all the data. Now this one, it's recommended that students drink 48 or more ounces of water. How could you use a histogram to easily display the number of students who drink the recommended amount? So a histogram with intervals from, and you only have 2 options, would easily display this information. So if my recommended amount is 48 ounces and I'm trying to show who met that amount, would I want it to go from 0 to 48, then 48 to 96? Or 0 to 32 and 40, or 64 to 88. Which option makes more sense? The top one. The bottom one doesn't even like 32 for sure is not recommended. Like it wasn't part of this problem. If I had a histogram that showed me this many from 0 to 48 and this many from 48 to 96. I could see all the people that did meet the recommended amount in this bar, if that makes sense. Okay, I think that's it for today. You got your homework done. That's one less thing off your plate. All you need to do now is make sure you study and resubmit if you didn't get 80 or higher.